Hello, testing. One, two, three.
We got you. How are you doing, Dan?
Hey, Sean, very well. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for taking the time. You don't know how much this means to me.
Oh, I'm delighted. Thank you so much. We'll
Look
have a
at the,
great conversation, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will too. Um, I love the artwork behind you. I recognize it all.
Oh, you do? Really? So, wow, you are a reader indeed.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I came across I came across your book when my grandfather actually was in hospice. He was passing away, and my
Really?
uncle, who I'm very close with, we were just having a deep chat, and he goes, there's a book I read a long time ago. I think you'd like, and he bought it for me.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I read it. It's on my, of course, kind of preparing for this. I dove into it, the last few days, but I just wanted to thank you so much for making the time, and I
Well,
appreciate it.
terrific. One thing I love about Zoom is it's an intimate conversation. I see the background in your room. You see a couple of my pictures in our bedroom office and here in Brooklyn, New York, and it's like an intimate conversation. It's just great.
It is great, and I'll tell you, my brother's in New York, so if I'm ever out there, I'll definitely reach out to you.
Oh, feel free. Just ping me if you get in the area and have discretionary time. We can grab some tea.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Sure.
Well, Dan, let's we can just hop into it. I did start the recording,
Yeah, that's fine.
and I I wanted to start again by thanking you again. It shows that you walk the walk, if you will. You live, by your values and your virtues. I reached out. I thought about a few days, how am I going to reach out? Because I wanted to, and then I thought, I wanted to, like, of course, catch your attention. I thought, I was like, I'm going to be genuine. I'm just going to say, hey, I love your books. I try to live by them. Really, the way of the peaceful warrior is the one that I love, the most. And I don't know, it resonates with me. And I wanted to ask you, what made you accept this invitation?
Well, that's a good question because I do get many invitations. I've done about 47 podcasts since January because of the new book release. I don't know. Maybe the was that honesty. I mean, I didn't consciously go, "Oh, this seems honest,"
Yeah.
but the fact that you had, read a number of my books, were enthusiastic about them, it just seemed like a good thing to do. And I like 30 minutes too. That's kind of a good time frame for me.
Yeah, right. If someone says, "Hey, do you have 2 hours?" That might be a big, a big
Yeah,
chunk of time.
yeah, that helped as well. And since I have a granddaughter coming over a little bit after 3 here, our time, it's so I'm anxious just to pop in and see where it goes.
Beautiful. I really appreciate that. And tell me about this new book, that you have coming up. What's the title of it and what's it about?
Well, the new book is called Peaceful Heart, Warrior Spirit. It was published in early January,
Mhm.
and it's getting very warm reception. And it's going to be carried, I presume, for many years through word of mouth. It's the true story behind the story. The subtitle of the book is The True Story of My Spiritual Quest. And many people go, well, didn't you tell that in Peaceful Warrior? No, Peaceful Warrior blended some fictional elements with autobiographical elements. But the new book is, true, factual. I checked it with relatives and friends, their memories. And yeah, no, didn't you get a copy of the book? I thought Monique, my publicist, would have sent you a copy, but maybe that was a slip up. We can still do it after the fact.
I have not got a copy yet. I'm excited to read it. I'll also be buying a copy because it'll be a great gift I could give to somebody too.
Well, the audio is fun too. I produced it at my daughter's audio recording studio. So many people enjoy the audio because it's my voice relating the story.
Yeah.
Some people love audiobooks. I do. I go around the park and bike or walking and enjoy audiobooks, but not everybody does that.
No, they're fun because, like what you said, you can consume them in different environments.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you dictate the book?
Yes, I do narrate the book, and I've done a number of books, so I keep getting a little bit better. I improve over time. So this one apparently has gotten some pretty good reviews in terms of the production quality. My son-in-law did the original cello intro and outro music. He's a master cellist, so it was kind of a family affair creating the audiobook. One thing about audio is nice is movies, you don't have any imagination involved. You don't even exercise a little iota of imagination. But audiobooks, you do, because you hear a voice, but you have to imagine what the scene is like and the person and everything. So to me, they're as good as reading a book.
Yeah, that's such a great distinction. I take walks. That's how I consume audiobooks. I used to do it while driving. I realized I don't let my imagination play as much while driving, right? Because you're focused on that. So some books may be more like, I don't know, firm self-help books. I might, when I say firm, I mean ones that are more like step one, do this, step two, do this.
Sure.
I'll tell you what captures me about your writing, Dan, is I would consider it, I think on the back it even says it's in a self-help category, but it's so different from somebody telling you what to do. It's different than me saying, hey, Dan, step one is you need to get like this right. You need to get this right. And what I love about going back to the book every time is no matter how thoroughly you read it, how slowly you read it, notes you take, whatever, you're not going to capture it all. You're going to walk away with a few things. And, one of the things I remember I walked away with the very first time reading it was to take my time to appreciate preparing and eating meals. It's something we do 3-4 times a day, maybe for someone like me, 4 or 5 times a day. And, it's just funny because that's what I took away from it, right? The first time rereading it this time, I took away, completely other things that I can actually put into practice, which is, beautiful.
And I think we're talking about Way of the Peaceful Warrior, correct?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, my first book. Yes, it was really not necessarily meant to be prescriptive. When I wrote the book, it was a broad-based introduction to what would become my work. I had no idea at the time I was going to be writing any other books. And in fact, I didn't write another book after Way of the Peaceful Warrior for 10 years. But then I met the third of 4 mentors I describe in the new book who influenced my life and work. And that's a major part of the spiritual quest. And after I met him, I was so excited about sharing new information that I ended up writing a book every year or two since then. And so I wrote Sacred Journey of the Peaceful Warrior, which it kind of takes place within the same time frame as the original book. It's a smaller frame story, but it conveys some information and perspectives I thought was useful. And again, it was couched in a story. So readers said, Dan, your first 2 books were so inspiring, but how do I apply this stuff to everyday life? Yeah. And that's when I ended up writing No Ordinary Moments, a peaceful warrior's guide to daily life in response to those queries. And it's still a classic of my book in that self-help area, chock full of various information. I don't know if you've read it, but there are people who've just read Peaceful Warrior. There are people who've just seen the movie and haven't read any of the books. And some people have said, Dan, I loved your book so much. I read it 6 times. And I said, you might have been better off reading 6 of my books once, because each book really is, I never wrote a book just to put another book out there, Sean. It needs to be written at the time it was written. And then one of my best-selling books I wrote after that called The Life You Were Born to Live, which is an entirely different type of book. It helps to clarify one's life path, and it's an uncannily accurate system, though I can't really explain it rationally. I go into that in the introductory material. And then from then on, there were some spiritual laws in that book, The Life You Were Born to Live, that I thought deserved a book of their own. So then I wrote The Laws of Spirit. So each book organically was like a plane on a foggy runway waiting to take off. I never knew which one was going to be written next, or if I'd ever write again. Then it appeared. So this new book is the first real memoir that I've done, because it is entirely true, based on my memories. It went from a 500-page memory dump or download, and I trimmed it down over 9 drafts to a 220-page book. Turning it into an unruly hedge into a bonsai. And so I want, Jack London once said it takes hard writing to make easy reading. And I wanted to make it as inviting as I could for the readers. In fact, my wife Joy also has some writing in it, because on the seventh draft, she read every draft of the new book, and she has for all my books. And she said, Dan, I was with you this whole time through these four mentors, and over the years, we've been together 47 years. And she said, I have a little different perspective. Maybe I should write something. I said, great idea. So she also wrote about 10 pages of material sprinkled through the book, giving her perspectives on our time together with these four mentors. I call the professor, the guru, the warrior priest, and the sage. And they represent radically different approaches to the spiritual path. And so that's why I felt the new book justified itself, not because I assume legions of people want to read about this Dan Millman character. But if my life can touch universal themes and affect your life, that's what made it worth the effort.
That's beautiful. And so I as I mentioned, I haven't read this new one, and I'm eager to. I'm gonna get the audiobook when we're done here, and I'm gonna take a jog this afternoon. Jog or walk, that's a good time for me to listen to a book, as I mentioned. You said universal theme, and let me tell you, that is another thing that like encapsulates me and what brings me back to your writing. The book I've read the most, and I think my favorite, is The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And it influenced the title of this podcast, right? I think you could see that: happiness, life's ultimate discipline, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And on that theme, and then let's take Socrates's comment in there: humor, paradox, and change, right? The three laws of life. That's something I feel like I've been able to embody universally, that no matter what's happening in life, there's a humorous side to it all, right? There really is. And then you get, and I who have much less clout behind my name than you, and I've brought that up to people in conversations, and you generally get the question of like, well, what about the passing of somebody's life or a tragic accident? And my understanding is that the humorous or the bright side doesn't always need to overshadow and overpower the negative side, but there is that light side that you can reflect on and look at, and then I think that's where paradox comes in, and change, right? The understanding and the comfort that everything moves and everything will evolve over time. Those are some of the universal principles I've got from your readings, and why they're things that it's hard to bring into every moment in your life, which is why I feel drawn to come back to some of these different readings.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying, a Serbian proverb: two men looked out of prison bars. One saw mud and the other saw stars. Both mud and stars exist. And we don't want to ignore the mud or deny it, because we might step in it. But we also want to remember the stars. And there are truths that are conventional that have different truths, transcendentally speaking. So conventionally speaking, there is nothing funny about people being killed in a country, genocides, people dying that we love. There's nothing humorous about that. But from the transcendental view, there's more of a lightness to it. When someone dies who we love, we grieve, and yet we also remember to have gratitude for our time together. Maybe that's even more appropriate than grieving their loss. Is gratitude for the time we had together. And look, Irish wakes are big parties. After the funeral, they really party. So there is that side. But I would never argue with someone, who was in a conventional mode and suffering grief, saying, yeah, but look at the humor in it, because they may not appreciate that. So it's more cosmic humor. It's more a sense of lightness. It's like down in the weeds. Every day we're dealing with conventional life, and we're down in the weeds at the base of a mountain and seeing what's going on in the small picture. But suddenly we find ourselves on the mountaintop and looking around at a panoramic view. and everything is more beautiful in the distance. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what I think Sock might have meant by humor, paradox, humor, and change. Not just what we might laugh about, but a sense of lightness and spirit and acceptance, as you were hinting at. Um, that all this is part of our life, our evolution, and ultimately everything is fine. Ultimately, everything is perfect, a perfect part of our human process unfolding. Now, somebody might be offended by that, saying, wait a minute, what about the current events, what I just read in the newspaper today? Are you saying that's perfect? No, not conventionally speaking. It could be improved upon, but it is a perfect part of our life process of human history, because what we learn from it may help us to evolve and grow and understand, which is, if I view Earth as a divine school for souls. Now, do I know that's true? No. But I like looking at it that way. And so daily life is our classroom every day, and there's a chance to learn a new lesson. And that's the arena of the peaceful warrior. So in one of my books called The Hidden School, it's the third in the Peaceful Warrior trilogy, after a sacred journey. And that's where I really get into the different truths that operate at conventional and transcendental levels. For example, conventionally speaking, time exists. We have to deal with the realities of time passing, including during our conversation. And yet, transcendentally speaking, there's no such thing as passing time. It's all the eternal present, the eternal present, the eternal present. And does free will exist? Sure, conventionally speaking, we make choices every day. But transcendentally speaking, can we choose what we're going to choose? Or is that already predetermined? So it brings up bigger questions about free will, about death, about whether we're individual beings or all one. So it helps resolve some of the big questions of philosophy by understanding the different truths that operate at conventional and transcendental levels. So, and by the way, when you get the audiobook, in the preface, the very beginning, there's going to be a revelation that might surprise you, even shock you a little bit. But I won't say what it is, since you haven't read it yet. But it'll open your eyes a bit about the true story behind the story.
That's exciting, because
Yeah.
I did watch some of your, some videos, some other interviews, podcasts that you've been a part of, trying to prepare. And of course, right. I wrote down I literally wrote down here some of the basic questions, right? Is Socrates real? Is everything that happened, real? And I don't even, I don't care to dive into those. This is just a beautiful opportunity to hear like you speak, and the way you broke that down is all beautiful. And something that piques my curiosity is about this back and forth between the transcendental way of thinking versus the conventional way. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah. 99% of our time, for most of us in day-to-day life, is appropriately spent in conventional reality, functioning, a daily business, school, education, relationships, kids, if there are any, physical health, finances, decision-making, all the stuff of daily life. That's the conventional world. And we have to attend to that. And that's why I recommend having our head in the clouds, that's the transcendent, but our feet on the ground. So, and yet there is a yearning in many people when they kind of think, I'd like to do more spiritual practice. Maybe I should meditate. What is it all about? What is life? What is meaning? All those higher philosophical questions or existential questions. That is more leaning into the transcendent. And there are people conventionally who've had every kind of success and they're still not happy. And that brings us to the central theme of your podcast, about happiness. And that's what happened to me. I had success as an athlete. I was a world champion. So where do you go from there? And girlfriend, and I was doing fine in school, college student, entitled white male, as a young guy, growing up through the 50s, 60s. Life was good, but yet I said, something's missing. And that's what drew me into my interest in spirituality. Where is real happiness? Where is fulfillment? Is it more money? I don't think so. A lot of people with a great deal of money just distract themselves. But are they happy? Did it make them happy? We've read all the studies that you need about $75,000 a year you can get by on. And yes, you're happier when you have that rather than less. But way beyond that doesn't necessarily impact one's level of happiness or well-being. So where is happiness? Well, what I do present, um, after having studied for over 2 decades with these 4 mentors and developed my own approach to teaching and what I call an approach to living, I call the Peaceful Warrior's Way, is that to me, happiness is not just some good feeling, a giddy feeling that descends on us. We all know what that's like, but it also passes fairly quickly. Rather, happiness is a practice. In other words, people say, well, what do you mean by that, Dan? How do you practice happiness? And I go, okay, well, let me step back for a moment before I explain that. You see, I do not encourage people, Sean. I do not encourage you to feel happy or kind or confident or courageous or loving or peaceful. I only encourage you to behave that way. And this comes from my teaching with the 4 mentors, the sage. Realizing we have less control over what we're feeling in any given moment or second than we do what we actually, our actions. We have more control over how we move our arms and legs, what we say, how we move our mouth. That's an action. By our will, we can will ourselves to touch our nose or to move our arms around. But to will ourselves to feel happy or sad or excited, good luck with that. There are so many books in the New Age telling people this is how you control your mind and have positive thoughts and an empty mind and quiet and all that stuff. That's the promise. But I don't know. I've asked audiences, raise your hand if you've ever read a book on positive thinking. Lots of hands go up. And I go, great. Now that you've read that book, how many of you, keep your hands up if you've only had positive thoughts for the last, say, 2 weeks. All the hands go down. And everybody chuckles. And I say, yes, but if you'd read the book twice, right? Or if you'd highlighted it and done all the exercises, then you too would have more positive thoughts and fewer negative ones. Look, I've been around the track. I've done the meditations. I've done the work, as you'll read about or hear about in the new book. Considerable. People thought I was a young jock, and then I met this guy named Socrates. Now I teach. It didn't work like that. A lot more went into it. Yeah. So in any case, and sometimes my thoughts are positive and sometimes they're negative, but I don't take them as seriously. I don't believe them as much. Yeah. So when I say I don't encourage you to feel all those nice ways, I only encourage you to behave that way. See, whether you're feeling grateful or not, you can say thank you. Whether you're feeling happy or not, you can smile. And I ask people, how do you behave when you're feeling really happy? We all know what that's like in moments. And they go, well, I go, are you more present? Yeah, I'd say so. When I'm really happy, I'm really present. Are you more enthusiastic? Yeah. Are you kinder? Sure. When I'm happy? So I say, good, behave that way. That's the practice of happiness. Whether or not you happen to be feeling giddy at the moment. You can feel irritated and actually say a kind word to someone. Our thoughts and emotions don't have to determine how we behave. That's a real form of liberation. And that's a peaceful warrior's approach. That takes a warrior spirit. And again, the idea of practicing the peaceful warrior's way, and I view all of us as peaceful warriors in training, because we're all seeking to live with a peaceful heart, but there are times we need a warrior's spirit to bring into life our best behavior and a sense of happiness, to radiate happiness, not wait for it to come to us.
I love that. I love the way you ended that, not wait for it to come to us. It takes a sense of entitlement out of it that we don't, I don't want to say deserve. Everyone deserves to feel happy, but it's something that you need to earn continuously is what, and practice, as you're saying. I one of the things that happened when I reread, this book in preparation for this was I wrote a blog about why do people. So I was an athlete, football, basketball player. I say was. I like to still think I'm an athlete.
Sure.
And I wrote a blog saying, why do people play more than they practice in life, but practice more than they play in sports? And my thought was that, people just expect to be happy, to do as they wish without putting in the work. It's like, I would never walk on a basketball court for a state championship game or whatever without having taken 1,000 shots a day for the last 5 years. But yet they want their mind to work like that.
Right. Exactly. And as you know, being an athlete, former athlete as well, you learned a lot of spiritual laws in your training, the law of process, the law of presence. But many athletes are so focused on the games, the points, the scores, the shots, that they don't realize they're learning universal laws through their practice. Sports are a way, just like business is a way, or raising kids is a way. They're all paths to personal growth and personal development. And so, there's a saying of reality, and the sage taught me this, which is that we cannot control the outcomes in life. If we could just guarantee we'd make a basket every time we shot. But even if we practice a lot, we're not going to make every basket. So we can't guarantee outcomes in life, but we can control our efforts. And by making a good effort over time, we increase the odds of getting the desired result over not making the effort. And that's the realization of any athlete. People ask me about meditation, and I say, well, meditation is an exercise, a particular kind of exercise. You sit down and you practice deliberately. And doing push-ups is an exercise. And if you do push-ups over time, predictably, you get stronger. And if you meditate over time and practice that sincerely, you begin to see the nature of mind, get a different relationship, a distance from thoughts. But the primary difference between meditation and push-ups is that you can't pretend to do push-ups.
Yeah.
And that's the realization of any athlete. There's no pretense in sport. You make the basket or you don't. You make the block or you don't. And so that's why I begin my book, the new book, Peaceful Heart, Warrior Spirit, with my days in athletics, because that was my foundation. It was the beginning of my spiritual practice. It wasn't a preparation for spiritual practice. It was the beginning of it. I just didn't realize it at the time. But every athlete has done spiritual practice. They understand it intuitively, and the laws of reality. So but for those who didn't do athletics, it's true for music, practicing a musical instrument, or even learning a new language, studying.
Any action. Any action.
Any action we do. And with that, cooking. Yeah. Any skill we do, we're training. That's why one of my books is called Body Mind Mastery, training for sport and life. That's so beautiful. Yeah, it all comes together, as you'll see in the memoir.
Yeah, I can't wait, because a lot of questions that like I have that come up, or that I see come up, are all about like, okay, but what did you actually do? Because everyone wants the blueprint, right? Everyone wants the 10-step blueprint. You brought up something extremely that really piques my curiosity. My best friend Marty and I, we go back and forth about he's kind of my sounding board and I'm his sounding board for our spiritual practice, and we talk about the importance of goal setting. And he entered the conversation where goal setting is a little counterintuitive to happiness, because, right, okay, I achieved this goal, I'm not happy. I entered the conversation from the other aspect that, we have goals. So for example, one thing I like to do now is ultra running, so like 50-mile runs or something like that. When I complete a 50-mile run, I'm not eternally happy. But if I practice the discipline of running, and I really want to get better, so to get better, I do need to be present and focus and work on those universal laws that you say so eloquently. when I do complete it, and if I do complete it at a faster time or whatever, again, that's cool. That's a nice pat on your back, but that's not the real win. The win is the journey to get there. How do you envision, and you obviously, I mean, that's what the book was about, right? You're a world champion. How do you see goals and goal setting relate
Sure.
to happiness?
Well, many of my books are based on purpose. The Life You Were Born to Live, The Four Purposes of Life, Living on Purpose. So purpose has been a key element in my work. In fact, in the Peaceful Warrior movie, the character Dan and Socrates hike up a hill, Socrates played by Nick Nolte. And they walk up this big hill, and Dan has this realization. The character says, Sock, I just realized it's not the destination that makes us happy. It's the journey. And yeah, there's some wisdom in that, because most of our lives, as you point out, are spent in the journey. Except if we don't have a destination in mind, there is no journey. We just wander around. I believe we're hardwired goal seekers. When I look at when my granddaughter was a baby crawling across the floor, she wasn't just having a workout. She wanted something. She was going for a big brother's toy or whatever it was. So we're hardwired from young childhood to seek goals. From our point A, we need a point B. And we're most absorbed. And now, whether we use the word happiness or fulfillment or satisfaction, there's certainly satisfaction when you finish running a 50-mile race and a sense of fulfillment in that moment. But the happiest people I know aren't even thinking about happiness. They're too busy being productive. So those who are always questioning, am I happy yet? Does this make me happy? Or miserable? Because it's like weighing yourself every 10 minutes,
Yeah.
So the thing about goals is we are wired to achieve goals. And in fact, I would define success as making progress toward a meaningful goal. And we need to find goals. We need to find purposes in our life. When people ask me, what is the meaning of life? I say, let's talk about purpose. I can say more about that than meaning, because we make up meanings. Humans create meanings. I don't know if anything innately means anything else except for the human mind. So, but purpose, yeah, that's pretty clear. We have goals. We have a goal now. I'm speaking with you. I'm sharing my purpose in this moment is sharing with you and having a conversation. That's yours too. So we know what our purpose is in this moment. And so that's what I'm aiming toward. There was a psychiatrist named Shoma Morita, who was one of the teachers of the sage. Again, one of the mentors in my new book. And Morita said, 3 guidelines for living wisely and well. Accept your thoughts and feelings, positive or negative, as natural to you in the moment. As you would in meditation, just notice them, accept them, they're there. 2, focus on a purpose, a constructive purpose. And 3, do what needs to be done in line with that purpose. So it doesn't really matter whether I have positive thoughts right now or what I'm feeling at the moment. I'm not saying ignore feelings. They can carry useful information. It's not like about denying or ignoring feelings, but you don't let them run the show. You feel what you feel, and meanwhile, what's my purpose? And then doing what needs to be done in line with that purpose. It's a way to function wisely and well in life. It may not sound too spiritual or sexy, but I'll tell you, those who get things done have a higher baseline of happiness than those who don't get things done.
Yeah.
You know this intuitively in your own life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you say it so well. Are you familiar with Earl Nightingale and some of his?
Yeah, actually, they send me a check now and then for some program they produced with me. So I'm familiar with Nightingale Conant. Yeah,
he has a piece of philosophy. It's out there on Spotify. It's like 30 minutes, and he said something that really struck me. It's very similar to what you said. He said, a successful person is progressing towards a predetermined and worthy ideal.
Well, there you go.
And that, I think you said it a little more succinctly, which I appreciate. But, then he talked about, write down that goal, think about a goal and write it down and take the steps, take the actions to do it.
Yeah.
And you don't need to judge yourself along the way. You don't need to do anything, but you need to go in that direction.
That's why I suggest to people, dream big, but start small and then connect the dots. So it's saying much the same thing. Andre Gide once said, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but it needs to be said again because no one was really paying attention. So there's always room for new voices, new ways to express things. And in your citing Earl Nightingale's wonderful quote, nobody's smarter than all of us. So the perennial wisdom, as Alan Watts used to call it, is abounding all around us. One of my hobbies has been collecting quotations. I'm working on 1,000 pages of quotes I've collected over the last 50 years,
Wow.
sorting them and so on, because they have pithy wisdom. And so that's why I'm always coming up with a quote for the moment, because they're just buzzing all around. And there's so much wisdom. It's not my wisdom or yours, it's just wisdom. And we can pick it out of the air to help remind us and guide us through the shoals and tricky waters of life sometimes.
Yeah, that's so wise. It's definitely no one's. It's all of ours. That's beautiful there.
Yes. And by the way, I do note that my granddaughter is going to arrive in about 2 minutes.
I was going to say, I want to be respectful of your time, Dan. And again, I wanted to just thank you for taking the time to join. And I hope this is not the last time we speak. I will be listening to you talking in my ears later today. My last question, do you have any last thing to say to the audience?
Well, I would. I'd say it to you and I'd say it to your audience. Stop comparing yourself to other people. It's a profound disrespect for your own process. I see many unhappy young people, particularly or people who are using social media because everyone else is showing their best side, their best life. Look what fun I'm having in Cabo or wherever, and they're going, oh, wow, they seem more popular and more beautiful or handsome or having more fun than I am. And this comparison is just a form of suffering. When I taught gymnastics many years ago, let me stop because there's a siren in the background here in Brooklyn, New York. So hold on. I don't know if you hear it, but
oh, I hear it.
Okay. I don't charge extra for the sound effects, but so I was going to say that when I coached gymnastics and taught, I noticed some people learned somersaults easier or quicker than others. But often I also noticed that those who took longer to learned it better than those who learned it quicker. So we have to trust our own process of learning and of living. Someone once said, I cannot write a book commensurate to Shakespeare, but I can write a book by me. And so there's always room for more new voices to express in their own way what they've learned. I was one of those voices. I shared as best I could, and 18 books. And I'm pretty much retired from writing books now with my culminating work, the most recent one. But I'll continue to teach where I'm invited. And I thank you for this opportunity to share with you and your listeners.
Thank you for the focus, for the energy. There's nothing to add on to that. That was just so beautiful. Dan Millman, everybody, if you haven't had a chance to read his work, listen to his work, even watch some of the interviews he's been on, I highly recommend it. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Dan. I look forward to speaking with you soon.
A pleasure meeting you and sharing with you, Sean. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.